D'Ambrosio is going to be with us second hour. We haven't had Dr. Italy on for a long time. It's been a while since we've had Dr. Italy on, and we're going to have two members of his family this summer. We'll talk about that with him the second hour, but Dr. Marcelino D'Ambrosio to talk about the gift of the papacy. So hang on for the second hour for that. This hour, the young whippersnapper. If Dr. D'Ambrosio has been at this for a while, Adrian Lawson is relatively new to it, but he's got a fantastic YouTube channel. Just hang on, Adrian. I can get through this. I want to show you.
Do the intro?
No, I'm going to handle it. Sips with Sarah is his YouTube channel, and he talks about his own conversion to the Catholic faith, and he helps other people come into the Catholic faith by talking about how Catholicism is the truth and it's a real alternative and you can do it, and it helps and it's good for you. And,
it is.
And it connects you with the living God and all of that. Adrian Lawson, thanks for being here with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Should
again.
I Mr. Sips or just Adrian? What would you prefer?
Adrian's good.
Adrian's okay?
Yeah, Sips
All right.
is kind of weird.
All right. Well, you don't have to put me down right from the beginning. What do you do at Sips and Sarah? Sips with Sarah? What happens there? And Sarah, by the way, is not a lady named Sarah.
No.
It's Serra. And anybody in California would know who that is. But
Yeah.
I honestly, as a Californian, I don't know how many people know Saint Junipero Serra. But he's the apostle to California. Mm-hmm. He brought the Catholic faith here. So what happens on Sips with Sarah?
Yeah, well, we talk about why Catholicism is true and all of the various topics that come up with that. So I talk about the Marian dogmas, why those are true, why it's important that they are dogmatized. I talk about the papacy, what the early church believed in regards to all these things. Basically, any of the topics that people might have a hard time with coming into the church or might have a hard time defending to their friends and family who are not yet in the church. That's what we talk about over there. Lately, I've also been wrestling with Islam, so that's kind of what I've been getting into lately as well. Is just
So you're doing our show, is what you're.
Yes, I'm here to take over. I'm trying to do what you guys do. 'Cause you guys have been a big help for me.
One of the things that we really, I think that you have a lot of fans around here, but it's always so gracious of you to come all the way in. That's probably, I don't know, you probably are 60 miles from here or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. About an hour and a half.
About an hour and a half drive, which
Yeah.
is 8 miles in California.
That's true. Yeah.
So thanks for coming in. But today we're going to talk with folks. The theme of our show today, of our hour with Adrian Lawson from Sips with Sarah, is I want to become Catholic, but, and if that's you, 888-318-7884. What are your obstacles to conversion? What's getting in the way? If you've got one you want to talk about with Adrian, he's been through a lot of them with other people, and he's been through them himself. I want to become Catholic, but, and then you fill in that blank. 888-318-7884. When you were considering entering the Catholic Church, if you had said the sentence, I want to become Catholic, but, what would have been on the other side of that? What would have been to fill in where the ellipsis is there?
It would have been a couple of things. Probably the papacy and prayer to the saints. Now, prayer to the saints, I was a little bit more far along on because I had already accepted the Marian dogmas, thanks to famously Tim Staples' book. So I was like, okay.
Oh, that's right. You read part of Tim Staples' book, and that got you over. I remember that now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was kind of further along on that, but I was like, I don't understand, like having, a saint that you pray to, like a devotion to a saint, like that feels kind of weird. It was very alien to me at the time, so I was still kind of wrestling with that. But the papacy was also a really big one. I understood the practicality of it, but I was like, I don't really see this, at least at the time. I didn't see it in the scriptures, and I didn't see it in the early church.
Oh.
Now I have a whole video dealing with the papacy and the scriptures in the early church, and I think it's very clear.
Is it one of those things, like one of those puzzles where you don't see it, and then when you do see it, you can't stop seeing
Yeah.
it? Is that how it feels to you?
100%. Yeah. In fact, I was talking to a Protestant friend, and I told him, I'm at the point now that I think this is so clear in the scriptures, now that I've seen it, like you said,
Yeah.
that if Catholicism isn't true, I don't really know that I could believe in Christianity in general, because the promises that Jesus made about the church were so clear, and the authority that he gave to Peter was so clear, and the fact that that authority passed on was so clear in the early church, that if we're wrong about these very foundational things, then I don't know what we could say we're right about. So I'm like, way on the other end of that now.
888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. Adrian Lawson is our guest. Sips with Sarah is his YouTube channel. And you can check it out. You've got a whole bunch of videos over there. So other than yourself, you deal with other people, right? Because they say, Adrian, I know your story, but I'm not ready to come into the Catholic Church because what do they put on the other end of that?
Man. So I know some folks who were raised Catholic and have kind of fallen out of it and are kind of in the Protestant world. And it sounds to me, just hearing from their story, that when they were raised, they weren't properly catechized. They didn't understand what any of the stuff meant. And they were just kind of told, this is what you do, or else you're going to get punished by your parents or something like that. So there's a lot of that where people just like don't understand. So they're kind of, even though they've technically been in the faith their entire life, they're kind of asking the basic questions of like, why do we have priests? Why do we have bishops? Why do we have the Pope? Like, why can't I just go to a pop-up church down the street from Pastor Bob or whatever?
Right.
And so there's a lot of these foundational things that people weren't taught. So I that's one of the big ones is like, why do we do all of this stuff?
It's weird. It does seem weird that this is a very modern objection in many ways. I mean, I know it's always existed, but it's like we live in this world where we think that if you organize the train system, it runs better, and so you want that. You want cities that work and are well organized. But when it comes to religion, it's like, organized.
Get your hands off of that.
It's too complicated. Why should it be so complicated? It's like, well, like a watch is complicated, and the reason it is because that's how it works. If you took out pieces, it wouldn't work.
Right.
But we have a very modern objection to religion being at all developed. It's got to be almost primordial and the religion of a caveman in order to be authentic.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to you hear about parents who they're like, I don't want to push my religion on my child. Because I want them to kind of figure it out for themselves. But it's like, do you let your child figure anything out for themselves, or?
Yeah. How did you do that with light bulbs?
Right.
Did you
cover the electric sockets? I hope so.
Right. Yeah. It's very. So would you say people like see the Catholic Church as an inauthentic thing because it is so structured and organized?
I don't know I think they think of it as too authoritative.
So they're like, that's a different thing. Okay,
I want it to just be me and Jesus, and the fact that you're having this priest involved and these bishops and all this stuff, that feels weird to me. Like, why would somebody else be involved in my spirituality?
Oh yeah.
So the individualism that we live in, that's become kind of pervasive. Like, you don't really even see it because it's the culture we were raised in. I think that's a big obstacle.
I wonder if when Jesus sent the apostles out 2 by 2 and they went into a town, people were like, I just really want this to be a me and Jesus thing. So could you just go back to him and tell him to come directly? I'm sick of him sending people.
Right.
Do you think that they did, that was?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. No.
Thank you, James and John, for coming to my Sumerian town, but I was really hoping just to have it me and Jesus.
Yeah.
I think that's the response they got.
I hope not, because Jesus said, whoever rejects you rejects me, and whoever rejects me rejects the Father who sent me. So I hope not.
888-318-7884 is the number. Adrian Lawson is our guest. As I have said, he's the host of Sips with Sarah. He's the founder of Sips with Sarah, a wonderful Catholic YouTube channel, gaining subscribers all the time, growing and growing because it's good quality stuff. And if you'd like to talk with him, there's still 3 lines open, 888-318-7884. We will get to the callers who are on the line right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
We're here for you. Call now. Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Magnificat. Published monthly, Magnificat features texts of daily Mass, prayers, articles, meditations, art commentaries, and more, in step with the liturgical rhythm of the Church, on the web at magnificat.com.
Proclaiming the faith, changing lives.
The year was 1981. The FCC license to operate a satellite Earth station, the first ever given to an order of nuns, was granted to Our Lady of the Angels Monastery. Mother Angelica flips the switch and EWTN begins transmitting from Irondale, Alabama.
To learn more about Mother Angelica's life and the history of EWTN, visit EWTN.com/Mother Angelica.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Heading to the phones. Our topic, I want to become Catholic, but if there's something between you and the Catholic Church, between you and full communion with the Catholic Church, and you'd like to share it with us, Adrian Lawson is here from Sips with Sarah. 888-318-7884 is the number. If you would like to see Adrian in person, he just told me he's going to be at our big annual conference, September 25th. Here in September 25th through 28th here in sunny Southern California. Just go to CatholicAnswersConference.com to get all the information. And if you don't want to see Adrian, we have a European cruise coming up that he will not be on. So
I will not be on that.
I know you're not going to be on that. We've specifically said, don't come with us, Adrian.
Yeah.
That's not really true.
I wasn't invited to that one.
But cabins at various levels of the ship. The entire ship will be Catholic Answers folks. We'll be doing presentations and having fun and taking tours, but mostly seeing the heart of Christian Europe, the place where in the Rhine River there, that valley, that's right where Boniface himself came and established Christianity. We'd love it if you'd come. Just go to CatholicCruise.com if you'd like to know more about it. It's all the way in May of next year, CatholicCruise.com. I can promise you it's going to be a great cruise, and I can promise you that Adrian will not be there. 888-318-7884 is the number here. Let's go to, want to take a call now? You good with
Sure.
that? All right.
Yeah.
Natalie in Lubbock, Texas, watching on YouTube. We're awful glad you're here. Natalie, go ahead with your question.
Yes, I just had a question. So I come from a Protestant family. I wasn't really raised in any religion until I met my fiance. He was actually born and raised a Catholic. So he actually introduced me to the Catholic faith. And I'm actually going to be starting my conversion next month in August. I'll be taking OCI classes.
Congratulations, Natalie.
Thank you. And whenever I was explaining to my sister, she had said that, oh, you know, they worship Mary, they do this, they worship saints and stuff. And I tried to explain to her that we don't worship them. We kind of just pray to them to ask for their intercession. And she was like, oh, you know, well, you can't because, you know, they're dead. And what I don't understand is that I actually lost my dad about a year ago. And she believes in, like, signs from him and stuff. She talks to him, and I'm just like, well, if you can, you know, do you think the same thing, that just because our dad's dead, you can't talk to him, so therefore, can we not pray to Mary and the saints?
Wow, Natalie, I'm going to let Adrian answer you because this is one I know he's very comfortable with because he went through a very similar thing himself. But I just want to say, you said, when your sister said those things, you said, no, that's not what we do. And I'm glad you used the word we, because when someone becomes a catechumen, someone puts themselves in a position of beginning to entering the Catholic Church, you are one of us. The Church specifically says in her documents, especially in the Second Vatican Council, you belong to the Church. So I'm glad that you used the word we. You're not a we just when you receive the sacraments. You're a we when you start the process. So can you help her, Adrian, on the obstacle of praying to the saints and worshiping Mary and all that?
Yeah, I mean, well, thank you for calling, first of all, Natalie, and praise God that you're an OCIA. I'm curious, did you bring that objection up to your sister, and what did she say to that, if you have?
Yes, so we actually sat down in my room, and I'm actually getting married next month in the Catholic Church. It's just going to be a ceremony, and whenever I told her that, she just kind of kept going, you know, on and on about they do this, they do that, they have statues, they have pictures in the church. And she was also saying that pictures and statues bother her as well. And when I told her that, you know, she pretty much just said, you know, oh, you know, they're dead. You know, you can't pray to them. And I used the example like, okay, so why is it if we can go straight to God and pray to Him, why is it that you asked for family or you asked for your friends to pray for you?
Right.
It's the same thing that we do. And she was like, no, like that's different because we are praying for each other because we're alive. So.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there are many examples, especially there are a few in Revelation that tell us that the saints are not only not dead, but they are alive and aware of what is happening on earth. For example, I'm blanking on the chapter of Revelation, maybe you know, but where the martyrs are actually praying for justice on earth for those who martyred them. So they're aware that the people who martyred them are on earth. They haven't received their justice yet, and they're asking God, how long until you bring justice to them? So that's one example of a very clear example of people in heaven being aware of what's going on earth. Also, we're told in Hebrews chapter 12 that we are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. Before that, it's describing the many great prophets that have come before us. And if we're surrounded by them, then of course they're aware of what's going on, and we can ask for their prayers. And then, not to bombard you, but as far as the statues, if you go and look at the construction of, in the Old Testament, of the tabernacle, of the Ark of the Covenant, God gives Moses very specific instructions of you're to build statues of angels. And there are even angels that are in the curtain in the temple. So if I think where they're getting this from is the commandment of thou shalt not have any graven images, and that's always kind of taken out of context to mean that you can't have any statues. But interestingly, a lot of people who say that will even have statues in their own house of angels. I have family who will press me on this, and I'll say, you have a statue of an angel right there. That's not, I don't know if that's the case here, but I don't think you can be consistent with that, because then you'd have to say that God commanded Moses to commit idolatry, which obviously, and then you think of the snake on the snake after the Israelites were bitten by snakes, and Moses made a snake on a rod, a statue of a snake on a rod for them to look at and be cured. So these are all instances of, yes, there are statues that are commanded to be made. When you worship those statues, that's a problem, but that is not what we're doing, obviously.
Is that helpful to you, Natalie?
Yes, that is very helpful, and I'm actually learning more as I continue this path. But I'm very excited to learn even more, so that way next time I can defend my faith even stronger towards my sister.
I tell you what, if you'd like it, I'd like to send you a book by our colleague, Dr. Carlo Broussard. It's called The Saints Pray for You, and it's a whole book where he kind of goes into great detail about the Catholic teaching and defends the Catholic teaching on that the fact that the saints are aware of us, that they pray for us, that they care about us, that they love us. And that they're better at praying and helping than the people here on earth because they have been made righteous. So if you want a copy of it, all you have to do is hang on the line, Natalie, and we'll send it off to you. And I got to say that I really enjoyed your call. And as you're going through the OCIA process, as things come up, you're welcome to call here whenever you like, all right?
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Y'all have a blessed day.
You too, Natalie. Thank you.
Didn't you guys do a video about... you guys did a video, every objection to prayer to the saints answered.
We did do that.
That was really good.
I wish I had thought of that when Natalie was. Oh, she's getting her book right now.
Yeah.
But they can tell her in there. That's right. We made that with Carlo,
yeah.
Dr. Broussard. I used to call him Carlo, but now I have to call him Dr. Broussard. A memo went out. There was a whole thing. That's not true, by the way. In case anybody thinks that that's true, that's not really true. You want to do another call?
Let's do it.
I don't want to wear you out.
No, I mean, do you have something you want to talk about?
No, I just, I don't know how many calls you can do in a day. Okay. All right, Spencer in Minnesota watching on YouTube. Welcome, Spencer. You got a question?
Hello.
Hi, Spencer.
Can you hear me, Mr. Kellett?
I can hear you, Mr. Spencer.
All right. Yeah. I like the title of the episode, and I guess my main thing that I'm a little bit intimidated by or nervous about the Catholic Church is the communion in one kind. That is only the priest needing to drink the cup.
Oh, That's an interesting objection. Okay.
Well, I'm Lutheran, if that helps
Okay.
explain anything.
Yeah, Minnesota, I guess you would be Lutheran. I think everybody in Minnesota is Lutheran. But no, I know there are a few others up there. But okay, so but something I don't know, and you'll have to help me with this. In your Lutheran church, when you share communion, do you both consume? You consume under both species?
Yes, that's correct. We drink and eat.
And you feel that if you became a Catholic, you'd be giving up the chalice?
I guess most, yeah, I know that, well, for a while in the church, it wasn't required, if I understand it correctly. And so that seems like an odd deviation from earlier on in the church.
Yep. Okay.
Like, I believe at the beginning they all ate and drank, and then for a while, at least in the Catholic tradition, it seems they went to only eating.
Yeah.
And I understand you're consuming both blood and body, even if you only receive under one form.
Right.
But to deviate from that tradition seems a bit, like, intimidating, if that makes sense.
Spencer, I'm just going to kind of sum up because I think it's a little muffled, and I want to make sure all of our listeners know. So Spencer's Lutheran, and his obstacle, really, to conversion to the Catholic faith is that in his Lutheran church, they receive both bread and wine. In the Catholic Church, he knows that in many cases the chalice will not be offered to the lay folks there. And so what would you say about that, Adrian?
Yeah. I mean, as a former Lutheran, I kind of had this same question coming in. Learning that we get the fullness of Christ in either species really helped me out. But there are parishes, I've been to parishes a couple of times where they will give you both, the bread and the wine. But what I would say is that I would really look into the topic of valid ordination and apostolic succession, because yes, maybe you don't like only receiving one species, but if you are receiving the fullness of Christ in that species, and you are, if in your Lutheran church you're receiving both, but that is not a valid Eucharist, then this is a really like total different scale of what we're receiving here. Maybe that doesn't help, but that's kind of where I would approach that.
Yeah. So what you're saying, look, if symbolically, it is better to receive both the bread and wine. But if it's only a symbol, as it would be in the Lutheran communion,
they would say that it's not only a symbol. But that's why you have to look into, that's why you have to look into valid ordination and apostolic succession.
Right.
Yeah.
So a validly ordained priest is required for the presence of the body and blood of Christ. Mm-hmm. So even if you were only receiving under one species, you're still receiving infinitely more than you would be. That's kind of where you were going.
Right.
Yeah. All right. I would like to come back to Spencer, but I have to be honest with you, Spencer. It was a little bit hard to hear. So I want to send you a book we have called The Eucharist is Really Jesus, and I think that you'll enjoy that. And I hope we will talk again. But for now, I'm going to send that book to you. It's by our colleague Joe Heschmeyer. A very popular book, actually, and not a difficult read. He's a good writer. It's a good, smooth read. So check that out. 888-318-7884 is the number. All you have to do is stay on the line, Spencer, and we'll get that book to you. Let's go up to, is that Nicholasville, Kentucky? Jordan is in Nicholasville, Kentucky, watching on YouTube. I hope I got that right. Nicholasville, Kentucky, Jordan?
Yes, that's correct, and I won't be too offended. I'm kind of transient through here right now.
Oh, so it's not your town?
No.
Good, because I hate that town.
Yeah,
that is the worst town in America, Nicholasville, Kentucky. Oh, Adrian and I both hate it.
Can't stand it.
We're kidding, Kentucky. We're only kidding, Kentucky. Go ahead, Jordan.
Well, so my question is, when does intercessory prayer go from asking for help to more of a superstition? I come from a Presbyterian background, and not gonna lie, that whole St. Anthony thing seems a little off to me, especially the way people tend to use it. Seems a little irreverent sometimes.
Wait, have you heard the
and
little
also
poem?
In the situation of,
Have you heard the little poem people
I'm sorry,
say to
go
St.
ahead.
Anthony? The little Tony,
yeah,
Tony.
I think that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I can't remember that, but people say a little poem to, yeah, and that strikes you as superstitious and trivial rather than asking for real intercession.
Yep, and another example would be like burying a statue of Saint Joseph in your backyard.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
That seems
Yeah. Okay.
especially superstitious.
All right, hang on, Jordan. We have to do this. The music's playing, so I got to do it. But we'll come back and we'll talk about, are some of these Catholic practices superstitious on Catholic Answers Live. Each Catholic is obliged to spread and defend the faith by word and deed. Well, we're here to help. Join special guests Chris Stefanik, Dr. David Anders, Steve Dawson, and all your favorite Catholic Answers apologists this September 25th through 28th in beautiful San Diego for the Catholic Answers Conference. Our theme? Go make disciples. Enjoy 4 days of faith, fun, and fellowship. Use promo code EARLY to save $50 when you register today at CatholicAnswersConference.com.
Lots of people have big questions about Catholicism. It needs a big book of answers, and now it's got one. The Big Book of Catholic Answers is filled with helpful replies to more than 250 questions about the faith. Questions about God, salvation history, the Creed, the Bible, the list goes on and on. Order your copy of the Big Book of Catholic Answers today at shop.catholic.com or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Why do Catholics pray to dead people, bow to statues, venerate relics? And where do we find any of this stuff in the Bible? In the delightful book, The Saints Pray for You, Dr. Carla Broussard convincingly defends the ancient Christian belief rooted in Scripture that the saints care for us, that they're our allies. Order your copy of The Saints Pray for You today at shop.catholic.com or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Our Lord needs articulate defenders of the truth to spread the joy of the Catholic faith. Catholic Answers monthly giving club, Society 315, helps you fulfill the call in 1 Peter 3:15 to always be prepared to make a defense for the hope that is in you. For as little as $10 a month, you'll help Catholics grow in faith, bring lapsed Catholics home, and lead non-Catholics to the truth. Go to casociety315.com and join today.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Our guest is Adrian Lawson from Sips with Sarah, which you can find on YouTube. He is very helpful. I would say that that's your thing, being helpful.
I try.
You're not a bombastic, wild, but you're helpful to people.
Wow.
That's what you're going for?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Because it's hard to get attention on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to get attention. You can do it all different kinds of ways, but
yeah.
I
thought that would be a hindrance to me because I've always been told that I'm very monotone and that I'm not bombastic and like energetic and stuff. But actually, I've heard from people that follow the channel that they actually really prefer that because there's so many personalities online
that not having a personality.
And,
oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Not having a personality has worked out really well for me.
Good for you. Okay, good. We're talking about if you have an obstacle to coming into the Catholic Church, you're welcome to call today, 888-318-7884. Jordan is in the worst town in America, Nicholasville, Kentucky. And his concern is, look, some of this stuff, like when Catholics, it's not just like the praying to the saints, which my sense of what Jordan is saying is that that's not as problematic as the kind of flippant. Darren told me one that people say during the break, Hail Mary, full of grace, help me find a parking space. You say it particularly at Christmas time when you're going to the mall. And then the one that I was trying to remember was Tony, look around, something is lost and must be found. Because, you pray to St. Anthony when you've lost things. I pray to St. Anthony, and I don't think it's superstitious at all. I think this is a great ministry St. Anthony has, where he helps you with stuff, and it gives you like this confidence that you can talk to the people in heaven. And I think it's great. But I don't think I would pray, Tony, look around, something lost and is lost and must be found. And then the other thing Jordan mentioned was burying a statue of St. Joseph in your yard. And that the version of that I know, Jordan, and you'll have to tell me if I am right or not, is when people bury St. Joseph in the yard because they want to sell their house. Is that what you were referring to, Jordan?
Yep, that's the one.
And any others? Because I'm happy to do all of them if you got more. Or do you want to just go with that?
Those are the only ones that really come to mind. I as a Protestant, trying to become a catechumen while still, staying married, I really have no problem with intercession of saints. That was probably the easiest Catholic hurdle for me to get over.
But it's the taking it or the kind of flippant or superstitious one that troubles you.
Right.
Yeah. Adrian,
exactly.
What do you say to that?
I mean, yeah, I'm with you. I don't think for whatever. I mean, I don't know what the church teaches on this, but I am hesitant to call any saint by like a nickname,
like a diminutive.
Yeah,
really?
I feel
Tony?
weird about that.
Yeah. Saint Pete. Could you help me, Saint Pete?
AOPD. I would not do that.
Joni of Arc.
Yeah, but I do think that the saints are there for us in even the smallest things in life. Like people might think it's silly to, hey, I lost my keys, let me ask St. Anthony. But I've done it, it actually works, which is crazy. But it's a beautiful reassurance of faith. And if God can use those little moments of saintly intercession to strengthen our faith, then I don't see why he wouldn't.
He has strengthened my faith a lot through that. I think God knows that I'm very weak, and so but that actually has strengthened my faith. The fact that I can talk to the saints,
Mm-hmm.
but like, I'm just going to go with the burying St. Joseph in your yard so you can sell your house. Why don't you just talk to St. Joseph? Like that to me seems like the definition of superstition. Like, I don't think you should do that. I think that's a mistreating of the statue of St. Joseph.
Right. I'm trying to enter into the mentality because we do believe in relics and that relics have, power. But a statue of St. Joseph wouldn't be a relic. It would just be maybe you had it blessed by a priest, but
very, very often you would have.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't think that correlates to selling a house necessarily.
No. So I guess, Jordan, the point is, I don't think that either Adrian or I are disagreeing with you. There are some things that Catholics do that are superstitious, but those things are just superstitions. They're not necessarily Catholic things. Jordan?
Right. It's funny actually. If you go on Amazon and start typing statue of saint, the first thing that comes up is Saint Joseph the Berry to sell house.
Well.
And no, I do not believe that is Catholic in its in its origin. It's more sort of a perversion of what it means to have that intercessory help.
Well,
at least that's my thought on it.
Right. But, it's like we believe in praying novenas. And some people would say that is superstitious. But here's an example of why I think it's not superstitious. If you miss a day of your novena, what the church advises in general in her manuals and things is just pick it up the next day and act like just ignore it, because it has nothing to do with what you're doing, which is asking God for help. Like it's not magic. You're not doing a magic show where God has to do something for you because you got all 9 days. So if you get to day 5 and then you wake up and you go, on day 4, I completely forgot this whole thing. As a Catholic, you're really not supposed to just start over. You're supposed to just go on, because that's the way to trust God. And that's the difference between superstition, magic, and religion. Religion is about disposing yourself to receive God's gifts by asking him for his gifts. It's not about manipulating him by doing a magic trick.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's good, because I've accidentally skipped some novena days recently. So.
Well, I'm not saying I respect you for it, but no, but I
Is that what people do in Nicholasville?
In Nicholasville?
Yeah.
Don't get me started on Nicholasville, man. But anyway, Jordan, I don't think that we really argue about the fact that there are lots of superstitions in the world and lots of Catholic people people have superstitions as well.
I'd have to say I agree with you on that. Just
right.
like anyone can have superstition.
So do you want me to get you some phone numbers to Catholic churches where you can start coming in to the Catholic Church now?
I'm working on it through the cathedral in Charleston. So
praise God!
I'm working on it. I'm just trying to.
How beautiful!
Just trying to work on that and stay married to someone who's not very sympathetic. So.
Yeah, and that is a strain. And God bless you for that. That's a strain. You're changing. She's not changing. So that's it is something that we ask of the other person, and we see that even when two Catholics get married, often we'll see after 5 or 6 years of marriage, one of them will suddenly become serious about being Catholic. And that puts a strain on the marriage, because the first one says, I didn't marry this. I didn't marry someone who's going to daily mass. I didn't marry someone who's, and so yes, that's certainly the case that there is a kind of division that comes in the family when one moves and the other doesn't. If you'd like, Jordan, I'd be happy to send you one of our books. I would suggest Why We're Catholic. I'll send you that. But if you want another one, another great book that you might like is The Big Book of Catholic Answers. It's got more than 200 questions and answers from Catholic Answers. So if either of those books appeals to you, just hang on the line and tell Edgar, he's on another call at the moment, but hang on a minute and tell Edgar which one you'd like. In the meantime, I'm going to take a very quick break, and then we are going to continue with I want to become Catholic, but if there's an obstacle, if there's a condition that you need met before you can get into the church, you're welcome to call. Adrian Lawson is our guest from Sips with Sarah on Catholic Answers Live.
Hello, this is Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco. Keep your dial tuned to Catholic Answers Live.
In Morse code, the sequence SOS is a distress call. It's been said that it stands for Save Our Souls. Well, right now our world is in big trouble, and we're putting out an SOS call for help. Will you answer that call? St. Paul Street Evangelization, a Catholic nonprofit, has hundreds of teams who share the good news with souls who don't know Jesus. Catholic Answers is supported in part by St. Paul Street Evangelization. Visit streetevangelization.com to get involved.
He is only one of 4 popes honored as the Great.
Matthew Bunsen and the Doctors of the Church.
St. Leo I was pope at a time when Roman civilization was being overrun by barbarian armies. He stood as a light in the darkness and even saved the city of Rome from destruction by Attila and the Huns. Leo died in 461.
For more about the Doctors of the Church, visit doctorsofthechurch.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Our guest is Adrian Lawson. And if you don't know Adrian, you can find out all about him at Sips with Sarah on YouTube, where he himself chronicled his own conversion and still chronicles his own conversion to the Catholic faith. Would you say your conversion is ongoing, Adrian?
Every day.
Every day?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. It was interesting to me, Ash Wednesday. It's I forget exactly what they say, but they say something like repent and believe in the gospel or something like that when they put the ashes on your forehead.
They actually there's a wide variety of things that they can say.
Okay.
But that's very common. Repent and believe the gospel. Yeah.
I was like, that's why I'm here. What do you mean? But that's kind of what I like about Catholicism, and I'm sure it exists in other Christian traditions as well. But the call to constant repentance and constant conversion.
And he's helping other people at their conversions as well. It's a community that's building up over there at Sips with Sarah. You should check it out. We're talking about people's obstacles to coming into the church. Kathy is in Bedford, New York. Kathy, thank you for waiting. Go ahead with your question for Adrian.
Yes, hi, Adrian. I heard you speak about people who were born and raised Catholic and then converted to the Protestant church. And I have pretty much a best friend that I went to college with. We went to Providence College, Catholic college, and she didn't have a great experience growing up Catholic, and her parents got divorced when she was in high school. And after she got married in the Catholic Church, but to a Jewish man who was basically an atheist. But they had beautiful children, and while she was married, and before she started having children, she met this church minister, and she became part of this. I guess she was born again, into this church, and realized, about Jesus, and she became just a huge lover of God. And she's so she has a great relationship with the Lord, and we speak about God all the time. She respects I'm Catholic, I respect she's Protestant, but I don't know how to tell her, because I recently asked her why, why she, how she became, how she got into the church and left the Catholic faith. And she said that, when she found Jesus in this church, that she went to her mother, who's Catholic, and practiced till her death, and said, Mom, is it going to hurt you that I, leave the church? And she said, oh, no, it doesn't matter. She kind of gave her blessing. And so now I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to, I want her to be Catholic again, because I mean, it's just such a beautiful faith. But she actually inspired me to become more, more into my own faith and more of a practicing Christian.
Yeah.
So,
Praise God.
Yeah. So.
All right. So how do we approach this, Adrian?
Oh man. Well, it sounds like you're doing a lot right. I think the worst thing you can do is to just keep bringing it up and try to argue and stuff like that. That's something I've done in my own life, and it doesn't work. It only strains relationships. So it sounds like you're doing things right. I would, if you ask her why not become Catholic, why not go back to the faith that you were raised in, and she might give you some answers that maybe you're not even prepared to answer in that moment, and that's okay. You can say, oh yeah, well, let me think on that, and let me see if I can go do some research, and I'll let you know what I find. And that's a good way to keep conversations going in a way that's not combative and in ways that are natural. I would also say that a good thing that keeps conversations going in that same way is just practicing your faith normally and inviting her to be a part of it. For example, you could invite her to Mass and say, hey, I know you got your church, but if you want to also come to my church one of these Sundays, that'd be great. You're welcome to do that. I'm happy to go to your church as well, obviously, assuming you fulfill the Sunday obligation. Different things like that. Would you like to try praying the rosary with me? Would you like to come with me to this event? Little things like that, I think, can be good opportunities.
Okay. So is it my obligation to try to convert her back? That's what I'm afraid of. Or should I just leave her where she is?
Well, ultimately, it's in God's hands.
She's so happy. She's so involved in the church. I mean, she started a food pantry with them, and her whole life revolves around it.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of beauty in people. I mean, I know I was raised in Protestantism, so I'm aware of some of the good that can come out of that. Of course, I'm not saying that everything in Protestantism is bad and wrong and evil or something like that. But
right. No, I agree with you. Yeah.
No, yeah.
But I just think she's missing out.
Of course,
she is missing out.
She is.
And I think that's.
Yeah.
But so there is an obligation to do what we can, but you also don't want to do the opposite where you're pushing her further away by being too combative, for example. So find the best balance of that you can, and ask God for help, and ask the saints for their intercession as well. And but don't feel like you've failed or something if she doesn't convert within the next month or whatever. Sometimes these things even take several years, as I can attest to. So
we've seen cases, Kathy,
I
where
feel like it's going to happen someday. I'm waiting for someone else to like open her eyes.
But she knows that you're Catholic, and she knows that you're the person to come to if and when that pull comes. And we have literally seen cases where the person was not interested until it was time to receive the last sacraments, and they didn't want to go home without having received the sacraments. And so you're there as her Catholic friend to help her back. You can't make things move faster than God wants them to move, and he's moving. He's definitely moving. So I would just like to add a suggestion, only because I know them, that the St. Paul Street Evangelization website has lots of great tips on just things that you can say that will be helpful, and they are not into breaking up, friendships over somebody keeps pestering somebody. But that's not what they do. But there's just ideas of how you can respond to certain things, so that the person is reminded of what the Catholic Church actually is, and maybe becomes attracted to it again.
Great, thank you so much. I do want to mention one thing to I think it was Jordan. I pray to St. Anthony all the time, and he has every time I pray, he answers my prayer like immediately.
Yeah,
so and my prayers are short and sweet, but they're not that one. Of course, I don't like that prayer either. But I love St. Anthony. I pray to him for every need. So,
That's beautiful. I'm glad. Yeah.
Always.
And and St. Anthony probably found you. That's what I find with Catholics is you have a saint that I don't know how that saint found me, or that, like, I have a great devotion to Joan of Arc. Joan found me. I didn't find her, and I think that's something that people don't know about these relationships we have with saints. I know there's millions of Catholic saints. I know there's probably ones that logically fit better with what I do but Saint Joan, it just means a lot to me, and so I love talking with her. I love praying to her, and I'm glad you have that with Saint Anthony. I don't think people. I often think people get caught up on the worshiping and the praying and all that, and they forget that, look, at the root of it's befriending. These saints are our friends, and they want to help us, and they're not fake friends. They're real friends.
It took me a long time to figure that out.
Yeah, God bless you, Kathy. Hey, if you want, I'll send you the book, The Early Church Was the Catholic Church, for your own reading, but also maybe it'll give you something to talk with your friend about as well. Hang on if you'd like a copy of that book. I'm going to try to get everybody on here with Adrian before we have to go. Joseph's in Albury, New South Wales, Australia. Good day, Joseph.
Hi there. Thanks so much for you taking my call. I just had a question that pertains to the area of gambling. Look, I know the Catechism mentions that something about it. Sometimes it feels like the wording, it makes it sound like a gray area, and in some cases, I suppose it is. However, I'm just wanting to get just a little bit more clarification on the issue. This is something I've struggled with,
gotcha.
But this is like also like I suppose I'm wanting to get more than just what the church teaches, so to speak. But I just, when I'm trying to read up saints, I don't feel like I get a lot of information out of it, or I mean a lot of it, or people's stories and experiences, and I'm really looking for sort of that comfort and reassurance that God is with me and that I can come through this time. And I would just love to have you guys, what are your prayers for me, and also just like, would you be able to say more about where we see this sort of in the Bible and how he wants to get us through, like addiction and that sort of thing?
Yes.
Thanks so much.
Yep. Joseph, I'm very grateful for your call. Thank you very much. So first of all, work us through the gambling thing, if you could, Adrian.
Yeah, I think of gambling kind of how I think of alcohol. It's not necessarily evil in and of itself, but if you have a problem with it, then it is your obligation to stay away from it. If you know that is going to lead to deeper sins, then that is something you have to stay away from. That's kind of where I fall on that. So we can point to many problems where people have an issue with alcohol, for example, but the proper enjoyment of alcohol without getting drunk is still okay for the average person. If you have a problem with it, then I think you should stay away from it, and I think that kind of applies to gambling as well. I'm interested in your thoughts.
Go ahead, Joseph. Joseph?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I was going to say, There's also like examples of saints that are like really sort of, I forgot their names, but if you look it up, there are examples of saints where they have made it a big deal that it is like a form of thievery, and it's a form of, because if you play, two people are playing and one person loses, there's one person who wins and the other loses as a result, and but then both of those parties freely, by their own will, enter the game. But I suppose, I just don't know. Like in Australia, gambling is a huge deal because it's just legal everywhere. It's like
I noticed that.
Las Vegas everywhere.
Yeah.
And there's each pokey machine gets about on average like $100,000 a year. So they make massive profits here, and a lot of people can really do themselves in. I don't know what more you can say on this issue. There's also the thing of crypto. People discuss whether it's it's a great opportunity to invest or if it's just a gamble, and I don't know, but more people at this very moment, it seems that people are getting excited because it's on a bull run. But then I'm like, I tried that, and
right, they have those in casinos too. Yeah, bull runs in casinos too. But Joseph, a couple things. First of all, the saints can be very, very helpful on these things, but many of the saints are expressing their opinion, and so you always privilege what Scripture says and what the church officially teaches. And so the official teaching of the church is in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, and it's essentially what Adrian just said. So as much as, there are many saints that were speaking to a particular situation, and that's one of the things that the church gives us, the general principles, the guidelines. And so individual saints, some of them had terrible, horrible, traumatic experiences that led to their opinions about certain things. The other thing that I would say to you is if you would like a community of people that might be helpful in talking about addiction to gambling, it's here in the United States, but they do online meetings, and it's called Catholic in Recovery. And they don't limit it to any, they have lots of gambling addicts, they have pornography addicts, they have, of course, chemical dependency problems. But it's a Catholic support group for people. And so you'll hear a lot of scripture, you'll hear a lot of reflection on what the saints have said or done in the lives of the saints. So I would suggest, too, just look into Catholic in Recovery. You can do the online meetings from anywhere in the world. Any other thoughts, Joseph?
I wanted you guys to open up the place in the Bible. I think it's John 19, where the Roman soldiers are casting lots for Jesus' robes at the foot of the cross. And every time I've sort of had a relapse of sort of or thought where I've gambled irresponsibly, I think about that time, and I can you open that a little bit more up for me about what that was, or how in Scripture, how do we interpret that?
I think I would be honest with you. I think the primary thing is that it's the fulfillment of prophecy from the Psalms, that they cast lots for my clothes. And so I don't know that it's I don't know what kind of a commentary on gambling itself it is. It's a certain way of saying that it's showing how low the Messiah had come, that they just gambled about his stuff away. It didn't even belong to them. They thought so little of him that they just gambled over his stuff. So it probably has meanings that could be helpful in thinking about gambling, but primarily it's about how humiliated the Messiah is because they cast lots for his clothes. I'm sorry, Joseph, we're right up against the break. You can hear the music, so I apologize for that. I hope you will check out Catholic in Recovery. Anybody who needs recovery help, just check it out, because you can do the online meetings, see if you'll like it, see if it's a helpful community to you. Our guest this hour has been Mr. Sips. He prefers that I call him Adrian Lawson, but Sips with Sarah is his podcast. Adrian, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. Always a good time.
Yeah, you're good company too. People should know that. You're an awful nice fella.
You heard it here.
Right, and that'll be the last time. That won't be said again. All right, when we come back, Dr. Italy's back. Marcellino D'Ambrosio on the gift of the papacy on Catholic Answers Live. Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. I have to be honest with you. Some days my job is really easy. I just get to hang out with great people, and it's always great when Dr. Italy is here. Theologian, teacher, media personality, musician, father. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. Dr. Marcelino D'Ambrosio is our guest. And I always feel proud that I can pronounce his name so well. Dr. D'Ambrosio, thank you for being here.
And Cy, I am proud of you.
Thank you.
Really, you do such a great job. That's a tough, intimidating thing to try to have a guest on with my name. And you know what? The reason Dr. Italy evolved is because it was a website URL, but hosts like you chickened out for trying to say my name and started just calling me that. So that's kind of how that happened.
I put the work in, you know. I do the hours of pronunciation work before the show. Yeah. There's no taking shortcuts here. That's great. All right, but Dr. Italy, where were you when we got a new pope? Because we're going to talk about the gift of the papacy today.
I was in Italy. You know, I lead pilgrimages. I love to bring people to holy places.
Right.
So it's a Jubilee year. You got to lead a pilgrimage to to Italy, right? So we went to Italy, and the grand finale was Rome, and the grand finale was supposed to be, visiting St. Peter's on May 8th. So that was our last day in Rome at St. Peter's, and there was black smoke at noon, and so we had an afternoon plan. We said, okay, let's do the plan. There won't be any more smoke till this evening. And we finished. A few of us made our way back to the square just in case there might be some smoke. And lo and behold, I got there 5 minutes before the white smoke began to billow out of the roof, out of the chimney of the Sistine Chapel. And everyone went bananas. It was electric. It was absolutely fantastic.
And do you start to feel people kind of rushing into the...
Oh, yeah.
Is that what happens?
Oh, as soon as the smoke came out, people rushed forward, and people started streaming into St. Peter's from every which way. You know, the whole town heard the news.
Isn't
the
that
bells
wild?
are ringing. Everyone's running. So once you were there, you were definitely there because there are people behind you. You're like a sardine, you know?
Yeah. That is so. Let me ask you this, and and you are an honest person, but I'm going to stress: be honest about this. He came out a few hours later, and you said to yourself, "I know exactly who this guy is. I know all about Robert Prevost."
You are exactly wrong there. Yes, I'm going to be honest. I had I had heard Prevost's name as an American, and somebody had mentioned. First of all, let me just say this. I never prognosticate. I don't predict. I don't do any of that kind of speculation stuff about the papal elections. I've been through a bunch of them in my lifetime, and I don't bother to read biographies of cardinals. I just pray. And I think that's better, you know. So like I pray, and so I did hear though a little bit in the news, although I wasn't looking, that it's unlikely that America would be elected. But if any American could be elected, it'd be Robert Prevost. And I said, who is Robert Prevost?
I know.
You know.
Yeah.
So I had heard his name only that one time. I found out, you know, a little bit about him. That the reason I didn't know him is because he's not the Archbishop of a major U.S. city. That he was a bishop in Peru, and then he's in the Curia. So that's all I knew about him. And when his name was announced, honestly, in Latin, first of all, I didn't know his name well. And then when it was said in Latin, I didn't recognize it. Yeah. So people started murmuring, who is this guy? But it was all in Spanish and Italian. I was surrounded by Spaniards and Italians. And someone yelled out, Americano, Americano. So I finally figured out, oh, it's an American. It's that guy that I read about. I didn't know anything about him. But listen to this. Right before I went into the square, we had some free time. And I said to the group, hey, we're near the Church of St. Augustine. Let's go to the Church of St. Augustine get Monica. Yeah. So we went to the Church of St. Augustine, and we were praying and asking St. Monica, who's buried there, to pray for our kids and our grandkids and for the cardinals. And then we said, okay, we got some extra time. Let's take a saunter over to the square, see what's happening. And so it's an Augustinian.
Yeah.
And I have to say, here's what I will say, though. When he came out and started to speak, I really felt the anointing of the Holy Spirit on him. I felt a reassurance from him because I felt he spoke of peace, the peace of Christ, the risen Christ. And I feel like that peace actually emanated from that pronouncement to us in the square. I felt that he was a very comforting, strong, but fatherly and comforting kind of a figure. And I felt right away bonded to him, and very much grateful for him. And that's, that was my experience.
Do you know something, Marcelino? Of course, I can't. I don't speak Italian, so I didn't know what he was saying. But then shortly after, there was a translation that was published, and it was in that moment reading the because I was just thinking, I don't know this person. I like, this was completely, and he took the name Leo, and for some reason that threw me. I was like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what I guess there was a little bit of anxiety, and that, which is stupid. I realize that, but my anxieties are not intelligent. And so I read those words translated into English, and I just felt an immediate calm. Like it was so beautiful what he said, so perfect for the moment. You felt like, I don't know who this guy is, but I'm willing to hear more. I'd like to hear more of this.
Yeah, I believe he has the anointing of a peacemaker.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
And John the 23rd was a peacemaker. And, I happen to be a guy who's studied a lot about the years before the council itself, I've taught these things. But he really brought people together in a beautiful way, including liberals and conservatives. And that's always a challenge. I mean, there's always a spectrum of people in the church that can sometimes have some difficult times with one another. And John the 23rd made them work together. And I think Pope Leo is going to make us all work together, too. I think, honestly, that that's a gift that he has, a charism that he has as
I'm
as a
so
leader.
happy to hear you say that, because it's I'm going to be brutally honest with you. Before, I didn't realize that this was happening in my heart, but it was like, well, will the next pope be a John Paul II Benedict type, or will it be a Francis type? And so that's what and then this guy, Robert Prevost, who became Leo XIV, you realize he's not either kind of character. He's really his own man.
Absolutely. And I love the way that the Lord chooses people and crafts them and leads them through their life. We're all different creations of the Lord, and we're different. And the uniqueness and the differences, that's part of what Catholic really means. The body of Christ, the image of the body of Christ that St. Paul uses, it's a very real image. We are different parts playing different roles. We're different, and Pope Leo is a unique and magnificent creation of God, and he's still growing, and we'll be growing with him, and we're all growing, and that's kind of the point of what the church is about. We're a pilgrim people on our way to holiness, on our way to growing into the fullness of the maturity of the body of Christ, as St. Paul puts it, and I think that's his role, is to lead us in that path.
If you'd like to talk with Marcelino D'Ambrosio, Dr. Italy, about the gift of the papacy, that's what we're discussing today, 888-318-7884. You don't have to find the papacy to be a gift yourself. You don't have to be a Catholic. If you want to talk about the gift of the papacy, we're happy to have that conversation with you. 888-318-7884. So I'm going to start with this question for you then. Because this was your idea. You wanted to talk about the gift of the papacy. And I look at the papacy and I say, they're not all gifts. Some of these guys, if they're a gift, they are very interesting gifts. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I want to say something right now when it comes to the church. Okay, if you look at the church, there's a lot of different images of the church in the New Testament.
Yeah.
There's 96 or so, as a matter of fact, that are used in the New Testament, because the church is a mystery that is not exactly like any human reality. But I would say that the image that's used the most and the language that's used the most is family. And St. Paul, Christians are called, before they're called Christians, they're called the brothers and sisters, right? Yeah. They're called the disciples, they're called the brothers and sisters. And so we really are a family. The household of God really means the family of God. That's another image that is family oriented. The word Pope it's simply Papa. It comes from the word father, Papa. And in a family, father is a gift, whether he's perfect or not. Because if you don't have a father, you're not there. You owe your existence in a certain kind of way to your ancestors. So like you respect your father, and your father plays a role even when he's not exactly perfect. And my father, who really didn't have a conversion until he was 63, he was a churchgoer as a younger guy, but he never led us in prayer. I love him dearly. But despite, and he had problems, he struggled with alcoholism. We had a big problem in our family with alcoholism on both sides of the family. He got sober when he was 63. He started reading the Bible. He really changed. But before that time, God used him, despite himself, to give me key direction at key moments. And we see this with Caiaphas, who, although Caiaphas is not a great guy, he says it's better for one man to die for the nation than the whole nation perish. And then John says, well, he said that because of his office. He said that prophetically because of his office. Even though he's a bad guy in a lot of ways, the Lord used him in his office. So here's my point. The papacy is a gift even when the office holder is not a saint, because God uses the Holy Father to keep the church together. He used the Holy Father to do a whole lot of things. And so we got to talk about some of those things. How is the papacy a gift? So I love it when the Pope is a saint. And there's a lot of saintly popes like Leo I and John Paul II, and in our lifetime, and John 23rd is very special to me for a lot of reasons. But, I love that. But even when they're not saints, God has used them, and they're very key to keeping the church together. If you want to see what happens without a pope, even with valid sacraments, you look at the fragmentation in the Eastern Orthodox communities, where a lot of them are not in communion with each other. There's a lot of problems between patriarchs and between churches. There needs to be a personal touchstone, and communion with that person, Peter, is a sign, and the successor Peter is a sign of communion of the church. And that's, one of the essential roles of the Pope is that touchstone of communion. Like Peter, he can stand up and speak on behalf of the other apostles. And without that, we're kind of bound to fragment, honestly. And that's part of the role. That ministry of unity is part of the role of Peter. That's why I'm so grateful that this particular Pope seems to have a personal charism in his leadership style of peacemaking and bridge building. And that's a beautiful thing.
Our guest is Dr. Marcellino D'Ambrosio, Dr. Italy, and our topic is the gift of the papacy. If you have questions about the gift of the papacy, maybe you don't think it's a gift, maybe you do, and you'd like to have a deeper understanding, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884. I will take a quick break. We'll be right back with Marcellino D'Ambrosio on Catholic Answers Live.
Let us help you with your question today on Catholic Answers Live.
Do you have a question but prefer to ask it privately? Catholic Questions can help. Go to CatholicQuestions.com to ask your question online, email us, drop us a letter, or give us a call. Longtime Catholic Answers Live apologist and author Jim Blackburn or another Catholic Questions apologist will be happy to assist you. Catholic Questions proudly supports Catholic Answers Live, so visit us at CatholicQuestions.com today. That's CatholicQuestions.com.
The power of prayer simply means that words have an effect. For example, when a couple says, "I do," it literally changes two people to becoming one in marriage. When you say, "I love you," it changes us and it gives us value. The power of prayer is in the words and in the sentiment, but it's also in the fact that God, who is omnipotent, all-powerful, answers our prayers.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. There's still a few phone lines open if you'd like to get in the queue. Talk with Dr. Marcellino D'Ambrosio about the gift of the papacy. 888-318-7884. 888-318-7884. But in addition to his other ministries and apostolates and efforts, one of the ways Dr. Marcellino D'Ambrosio is helping the Catholic world is spreading children who are well prepared in the faith around. We'll talk about your son and his movie coming up in a little bit, but you have a daughter at Ascension Press, and they have a book called When the White Smoke Clears, and it is about the papacy. This is a new book, so you're part of that process. Tell me about that.
Well, I came back from seeing the white smoke and got on the phone very quickly after I got back with my daughter, who was an editor there, kind of at Ascension, a manager. And basically, they wanted to do something to really help people get to know the Pope, but not just a bio, something that would really orient the people, make this a teaching moment. What is the papacy anyway? What is the gift of the papacy? And how should we appreciate the new Pope? How should we appreciate the papacy in general? How do we understand it? What is the role of the Pope as a teacher? What is our role to listen and in a docile way to what the Lord is saying through the Pope? How can we support the Pope? How do we deal with the news reports that will be coming about controversial issues that report on what the Pope said or didn't say? How do we deal with those things? So there's all sorts of different contributors, Father Mike Schmitz, Jeff Cavins, but there's also Dr. Michael Dauphiné from Ave Maria University, myself, Dr. Edward Sri. There's Father Josh Johnson. There's Katie Pergine McGrady, who's a press person, talking about press and how we should deal with the press, because so often press misleads us and misrepresents what the Pope is saying. So we kind of hit it from different angles. But anyway, we wanted to provide a resource to the Catholic world that could really help us to deepen our bond with the successor of Peter, support him more, and help make his ministry as fruitful as possible. So that's kind of what this book, this anthology, is all about, and it's out now. It came out. We did it. All of us wrote our chapters in a week.
Wow.
We got this thing together, got it sent into the press so that it would be ready for people, and it's now ready. It's shipping.
When the White Smoke Clears, get it at Ascension Press. Are they .org or .com? I don't remember.
They're ascensionpress.com and / Pope Leo, a special page just for Pope Leo and for this book. Yeah.
And what was your contribution? What did you have to say personally about?
Well, what I had to say was I shared my experience in the square, but then I talked biblically about who the Pope is. And let me just share with you something that is underappreciated. That was my conclusion. The Pope, a lot of people say, well, the Pope has only spoken infallibly twice in history. Well, it's actually not true. The Pope actually speaks infallibly when he declares a new dogma, but that's only twice in history. But there's actually definitive acts where the Pope speaks in a way that we really can't dispute on key issues connected to Revelation. Now, what is Revelation really all about? It's to make us holy. It's to lead us to heaven. We glorify God by becoming the saints that we were called to be when we were baptized, right? So one of the titles of the Pope is Your Holiness, okay? Well, the Pope is really about recognizing holiness and canonizing new saints. When the Pope canonizes a saint, it's an infallible act, believe it or not. That's why when the Pope died, we couldn't have the canonization of Carlo Acutis when we planned to have. Okay, so it had to be delayed because it's really a very solemn pronouncement after much discernment. The Pope makes it very clear that this person is someone to imitate. This person is someone to honor even around the world, in churches and dedications of churches, at the altar. This person is in heaven and can intercede for us. So it's a very solemn declaration, but it's giving us a new model. Every saint that's canonized shows us that it is possible that despite the weakness of our humanity, God's grace is there to lead us across the finish line. And there's a whole choir. There's a choir of angels up there cheering us on, but there's also a cloud of witnesses, as it says in Hebrews, on the other side of the finish line, cheering us on. And each one of them is a different model. We talked about uniqueness a little while ago. We are different people, and we're cut from different cloth, although we're all called to the same holiness. We're called to express in different ways, live different lifestyles. And so it's really been an emphasis of the church since the Second Vatican Council, especially to canonize people of different lifestyles. So we got married couples. We got people who were even there's actually some that are very unusual in the spiritual manifestations, like St. Joseph Cupertino. And there's some people that are very ordinary and plain in their holiness, like little Therese of Lisieux, you know?
Right.
But we have all these, but it's just such a solemn act. And I just say that Pope John Paul II, in his beatifications and canonizations, actually didn't just do more than the previous 5 popes, but he beatified and canonized more people than the previous 5 centuries of popes. Okay?
Yeah.
So 1,350 beatifications, over 400 canonizations. Well, Pope Francis did actually even more than that. And so we're actually hoping that Pope Leo gives us new models. And this is part of his role, because really it's all about holiness, you see. And so that's a very beautiful gift that we have in the Catholic Church, that this canonization process that's developed over the centuries, and the Pope infallibly proclaiming that, yes, you got a new model, you got a new hero, you got a new intercessor. Here you go.
When the White Smoke Clears is where you can read that essay by Dr. Marcelino D'Ambrosio, and lots of other chapters on the Pope, on the papacy, on what it means, and on how we can be helpful to the popes. I wish that we would all ask that question a little more. How can we be helpful? Not does the Pope think exactly like I do, which I think is how most of us end up behaving. But anyways, call here if you'd like to talk with Dr. D'Ambrosio, 888-318-7884. I'm going to start with the calls, and Andrew is in Orlando, Florida, watching on YouTube. Hello, Andrew. Go ahead with your question for Dr. D'Ambrosio.
Hello, nice to meet you, and glad to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you, Andrew.
Okay, so I guess my question has to do with, of course, it has to do with the papacy, but specifically in how it exercises its role. So, obviously, you talked about being the leader of the church. He should be doing his task and using his authority to keep the church united. But how come he hardly ever exercises that infallible authority? And we just say that every time we make a decision, he makes another type of decision. We just say, oh, he wasn't infallible in that case, or not in that case, and such and sort like that.
Yeah. That's a really good question, Andrew. You set me up to talk about something I really want to talk about that is connected to your question, okay? So why doesn't he make more infallible statements? There's kind of a misconception out there that we don't have to listen to the Pope unless he makes infallible statements, or he's not guided by the Spirit unless he makes infallible statements. So let me just tell you that defining a new dogma is actually an extraordinary thing for the Pope to do. And again, it's only clearly happened twice in history. And one of the things, the Church doesn't want to define new dogmas if it doesn't have to, because when a dogma is defined, part of that is an excommunication of everyone who dissents. So if you read dogmatic definitions, that's part of the deal. So, you really don't want to just go around making all sorts of infallible statements on things that are not absolutely necessary to define. And so the Pope doesn't do that very often, but he actually does have the power to make definitive judgments. And he does do those things. For example, on the ordination of, can we ordain women to the priesthood? John Paul II made a definitive statement that we cannot. It's not. It is infallible, but it's not a dogma. It's not like, it's a revealed dogma, but it's closely connected to the priesthood, which is revealed by God in the nature and necessity of the priesthood and the apostolic ministry. And so John Paul II basically made it very clear as a definitive statement, and it's not open to discussion. But here's what I want to say. Whether the Pope engages the fullness of his authority to make a definitive statement, like on the issue of women's ordination of the priesthood, or a definitive statement like a saint, this is a saint, he is in heaven, she is in heaven, that's a definitive statement. So he does, every time he canonizes, he makes a definitive statement, exercising very full authority. But every time the Pope teaches, he needs to be listened to with what the Church says is religious submission of intellect and will. And this gets to what Cy said earlier. The Pope is not to be admired and liked when he agrees with us, when he mirrors our thoughts. Like, our goal is not to influence the Pope and make him think like us. Our goal is to listen to what the Spirit is saying to the Church through the teaching of the successor of Peter. So when he teaches in a homily, or when he teaches in an encyclical or an apostolic exhortation, we ought to be, the posture that we have is an expectation that God has something for us here and for the church here, and that we need to really submit our intellect to try as best as possible to see the truth of what he's saying and submit our will as best as we possibly can to what he's saying. So that is actually the obligation of every Catholic all the time when it comes to the teaching of the Pope, not just when he teaches infallibly. When he teaches infallibly, it's kind of like he's guaranteeing that God is saying this and we have to accept it that way. But, you know, it's kind of like, I kind of liken it to father's authority in the house. You don't just listen to your father when you're living in your father's house when he says, if you don't do this, I'm throwing you out. That's excommunication. That's kind of dogmatic. No, you listen to him all the time. You respect him all the time. And that's really the key thing to understand about the Pope's teaching.
Andrew, thank you so much. Lots of calls to come. A few lines open. 888-318-7884. When the resurrected Jesus appeared to disciples on the road to Emmaus, they didn't recognize him until the breaking of the bread. The same is true today. In the Holy Eucharist, we really meet Jesus. In The Eucharist is Really Jesus, author Joe Heschmeyer explains how knowing Jesus in the Eucharist is the key to understanding all of Christian faith. Order your copy of The Eucharist is Really Jesus today at shop.catholic.com or get it at a good Catholic bookstore.
Our Lord needs articulate defenders of the truth to spread the joy of the Catholic faith. Catholic Answers monthly giving club, Society 315, helps you fulfill the call in 1 Peter 3:15 to always be prepared to make a defense for the hope that is in you. For as little as $10 a month, you'll help Catholics grow in faith, bring lapsed Catholics home, and lead non-Catholics to the truth. Go to casociety315.com and join today.
We hope that one of the things that we communicate here at Catholic Answers Live is that our Catholic faith allows us to be fully serious about all the problems we encounter in the church and in the world, but it also lets us have light hearts and maybe even mix in a bit of fun, and that is exactly what our good friend Joe Heschmeyer does in his popular podcast, Shameless Popery. You should check it out at shamelessjoe.com. Joe's got a deep grasp of the faith, of morals, the teachings of the church, all that, but he's also got a witty conversational style. He entertains and he informs, but you will leave equipped to better answer the most common challenges, misconceptions, and questions about the Catholic faith. He's got insightful guests, he does on-air debates, and he takes a close look into all the things that you want to know about as a Catholic living today. You'll walk away knowledgeable and filled with joy. Look for Joe on his YouTube channel. Check him out at shamelessjoe.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, become a patron. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Dr. Marcelino D'Ambrosio, our guest, Dr. Italy. And if I'm recalling your website, it is dritaly.com. Is that correct?
You're absolutely correct.
dritaly.com. You want to find about going on pilgrimage. You want to read what Dr. D'Ambrosio has written and all the other stuff that he does. Check it out on dritaly.com. You were this is a segue that I shouldn't miss because you were talking about the saints. I asked you a question about your essay about it for the Pope book, When the White Smoke Clears. And you have a son who made a movie about one of the greatest saints of the 20th century.
Absolutely. St. Maximilian Kolbe. And the movie is The Triumph of the Heart. That is just finished in terms of the last bit of post-production. And it's going to be in theaters in September. So everybody needs to check it out, triumphoftheheart.com. You can see the trailer. You can find out how you can ensure that it'll be in a theater in your town. So, yeah, check it out.
See this movie. I have seen part of it. I have not had the chance to see the whole thing, but I hope that this is just a big success. Anthony D'Ambrosio, we'll have him on we're trying to arrange scheduling so we can get him to talk with us about the movie on the feast day of Maximilian Kolbe. He'll be in Poland that day, which is where St. Maximilian Kolbe died, of course. And that'll be the big, that's August 14th is Maximilian Kolbe's feast day. And so, but we'd love to, we'll do everything we can to get him on with us to talk about the movie. And we're going to try to be as supportive as we can about it, because this is good for the whole world. To have a movie about Maximilian Kolbe is a good thing for the whole world. Whether you're Catholic or not, you should know Maximilian Kolbe. What a magnificent, just a wonderful person. And also, a great, I mean, I say also that these are actually related things. A Catholic saint, but a story very much worth knowing, the story of Maximilian Kolbe. And if you want to know where was God during the Holocaust and all of that, know the life of St. Maximilian Kolbe. Because I'll tell you what, I don't know where else we can find signs, many other signs of God's love and presence, but in the life of St. Maximilian, certainly we see that. All right, so The Triumph of the Heart is the movie.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Let's get some more questions for Dr. Italy. There's 2 lines open right now, so and I'm looking at the clock. We could probably get you in. 888-318-7884. Rita is in Texas listening on Armor of God Radio. Awful glad to have you here, Rita. Go ahead with your question.
Okay, my question concerns the qualifications for a pope. When the conclave is meeting, what do they consider when they look at a potential pope?
Well, I'm going to first say the book that we just wrote, When the White Smoke Clears, it really talks a lot about what the Pope is and based on Scripture. And so all the cardinals go in thinking about the Pope as a fisherman, fisher of men, the Pope as a shepherd. The new Pope has to be a bridge builder, because the church is international. So we want somebody who can not just speak to people in one country, but can have a wide range, can really understand the problems of the universal church and help lead the whole church forward. So, after Pope Francis, I would say there were strengths in Pope Francis that people wanted to continue with. And then there were things that needed to happen. Basically, there were some challenges in terms of some people feeling like Pope Francis wasn't as clear on some doctrinal issues as he could have been. So they wanted, a number of cardinals actually. So we really want a teacher. The Pope is an important teacher. So we want someone who's very good at being very clear. So, you could actually listen to various of the cardinals talk about what they were looking for. Some of them gave interviews before the conclave, and some of them will be talking about the conclave, even though they're supposed to keep it secret. They can say what they were looking for, maybe, in a pope. We'll hear a lot from them. But those are the things, basically, Scripture. What did Peter do in the church? That's what we want a pope to do. We want him to be an evangelist. We want him to be a good pastor. We want him to keep the church together, to be a unifier.
Okay. Well, do you have any 1 or 2 ideas that you would present to those maybe who are in our Catholic Church or are not, that they have kind of a negative opinion about what's the purpose of a pope anyway? Is there 1 or 2 things? What you just said is something I can pick up on, but is there more you could add to that?
I would always go back to Scripture. I would go to Peter's role right at Pentecost, standing up with the 11 around him, proclaiming the good news. The Pope is the primary evangelist of the church and the spokesman who can speak on behalf of the whole community. Right. But he's also that guy who has sinned himself and is weak himself and been forgiven by Christ, and is now called to care for and tend the sheep. And that, I love the passage of John 21. So I would just say John 21, Peter's confession in Matthew 16, to kind of direct people to read those passages, because those really are the foundations of what the successor of Peter's ministry is all about. It's about following Peter's footsteps. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Rita, I am loath to add anything to what Dr. D'Ambrosio says, but if you want to see a great interview with the U.S. Cardinals the day after the election of Pope Leo, it's on YouTube. It's the U.S. Cardinals post conclave interview, and it's just I found it kind of fun to hear what they had to say about what they were thinking and what they were looking for. And I'll be honest with you, just looking at their faces, they are pretty happy that that it was Robert Prevost. And maybe it was that they were happy it wasn't them. I don't know, but they looked pretty happy that it was Robert Prevost, and they said some very interesting things about what went on. Not to convey secrets, as Dr. D'Ambrosio said, but to convey what they were thinking and what they were looking for and what they thought the church needed, and then why they thought Robert Prevost was the guy. So you can check it out on YouTube. Let's go to Kansas City, Missouri, where Ellis is listening on Catholic.com. That's our website, Ellis, Catholic.com. Welcome. Got a question for Dr. D'Ambrosio?
Yeah, I do. Thank you all for picking me up. It's good to be on.
Well, thank you, Ellis. We're happy to have you.
Yeah. So my question is about Pius XII and some of his liturgical calendar changes. I was wondering kind of what was the reasoning behind the large scale, like all the octaves that were suppressed from the liturgical calendar in his time. I just I don't have a good answer myself, and so I'm just wondering.
Okay, well, the liturgy, if you think about organic growth, the liturgy is, let's say, like a plant, and it tends to, there are interesting things that keep growing on the plant. And at the beginning, the two great seasons of Christmas, Advent, Christmas, Lent, Easter, they were the main things. And the whole liturgical year revolved around Sunday every week, and then around these two seasons. And there were saints' days that began getting put in the calendar. Over time, more saints' days, more octaves, more feasts, and it needed to be pruned in the estimation of Pius XII, because the more octaves, the less serious the octave of Easter and of Christmas appear. In the Jewish year, a lot of feasts, but there were three main feasts that had octaves. And so that's where octaves come from. It's really Passover and Pentecost and booths all had octaves. That was if you go back and want to read that in Scripture, you can read it in Exodus. But anyway, so the church really wanted to simplify and focus us on Easter and on Christmas. And that's really why the liturgical year was this, what we call the temporal cycle. It was kind of simplified. And the sanctoral cycle also, like St. Michael, there was kind of a Lent. A lot of people were practicing a Lent of a fast before St. Michael's feast in September 29th. And that has been pruned. That's not part of the normal thing anymore. I would just say this. In our personal devotion, we can do a lot of different things that the church doesn't do in its liturgy. And that's, as long as it flows from the liturgy and back to it, it's great. Like, in other words, the Pentecost Novena, doing more with that, doing a little bit more of a Trinity Sunday is really like, for example, almost like an octave feast of Pentecost. And so, you can kind of celebrate a little bit more if you'd like. You can celebrate more feasts of the saints that are in the universal calendar. And I love that. It's part of the beauty of our church is that actually the religious orders celebrate more feasts, because they have a lot more saints that aren't in the general calendar. And our families can actually develop a little bit of our own culture of celebrating some feasts and doing some extra things that aren't done in our parish. And that's just fine. And that's beautiful. But the main calendar needed to be pruned, and it was pruned after Vatican II as well. But it was pruned after Council of Trent, believe it or not. So it's kind of a regular thing. The vine dresser has to come in and prune the vine so it'll bear more fruit and focus more on the central things.
What do you think, Alice? Makes sense?
Yeah, sounds good. It's like what Pius X did with the breviary when they weren't hitting the Psalms in the week. He was like, hey, we got to, change how we do Psalms with Saint Feast days. I understand it more.
I'm gonna have to trust you on that one, because I am not up on my Pius X and the breviary. I probably should be, but I will trust you on that, Ellis. But there's some things are permanent, and some things for a season they're important, but they're not. That doesn't mean they're important in the next season in the life of the church. I better take a break. Ellis, thank you very much for the call. Dr. Marcelino D'Ambrosio is our guest. Dr. Italy, dritaly.com. You are welcome to call because I've got one more call here, but I've got room for 2 or 3 before the top of the hour. 888-318-7884.
Hang on. Catholic Answers Live will return in a moment.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
One of the biggest mistakes a Christian can make is to try to do good without God's help. St. Therese said, when we trust only ourselves and not God, our soul becomes incapable of virtue. Her remedy? Works of charity. And the greatest work of charity is to share the gospel. At St. Paul Street Evangelization, a Catholic nonprofit, we encourage you to share the gospel with someone who doesn't know Jesus. Catholic Answers is supported in part by St. Paul Street Evangelization, streetevangelization.com.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
Isn't it awesome that we today do not recognize his presence in the Eucharist? Is it because we really don't go to him in humbleness of heart and say, Lord, I don't believe, help my unbelief. Lord, I want to see you. I want to recognize you. I cannot live without you. Are we saying that?
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
When the White Smoke Clears is the new book from Ascension Press. And man, is anybody doing a better job than Ascension Press? They do a million great things. They just do a wonderful job. And we're always happy to promote what they do. And this is a new book on Pope Leo in part, but on the papacy as well. And so if you'd like a copy of it, go to ascensionpress.com. What's after the dot? .com. Okay.
It's .com.
I always lose my nerve. I say dot, and then I'm like, what does come after that?
And you can even put a / Pope Leo to get right to the Leo stuff, you know?
Yeah. I do appreciate that he chose a short name. I mean, John Paul, come on. That was a lot of work. Over all, if you multiply it by all the years he was Pope, how much extra typing was it involved that this guy had a hyphenated name? I mean,
hey, and I just have to tell you, too. I have my daughter who works at Ascension Press has a sister, and that sister has a son, Augustine, and the next son is Leo.
No way.
Yep, Augustine and
wait,
Leo.
let me just get this straight. So Pope Leo was elected. She went out and changed the names of her children to match.
No. That was prophetic. She had the names of the children before. Okay. Yeah,
I'm actually glad to hear that because it would have been a little crazy.
Her husband Alex. The two of them. I think it was more Alex probably in some ways. He's the father of the church fan. So
well, if there's anybody in the Vatican listening right now, you're gonna need to get an invitation out to the D'Ambrosio family to bring Augustine and Leo over. All right.
Absolutely.
Yes, this is important that the Pope meet these two children who prophesied his rise to the papacy.
Absolutely. And it's Augustine's birthday today. Shout out to Augustine.
Yeah, shout out to Augustine. What kind of a Catholic church would it be without Augustine? It wouldn't be the one we've got, I can tell you that.
Absolutely.
God is good. 888-318-7884 is the number here. Jeff is in Yardley, Pennsylvania, listening on Domestic Church Media. Glad to have you here with us, Jeff. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you for taking my call, and I think it's great having Dr. D'Ambrosio fielding calls on the papacy tonight.
Oh, thank you.
My question regards the position adopted by the papacy, specifically Pius XII, during World War II, and specifically, why did the Pope immediately adopt a position of neutrality in light of the known terrible actions of the Nazis? Where was the vehemence and opposition? And why is there a movement and an ongoing movement to validate and venerate Pius's remedial actions that were done opaquely to help the Holocaust survivors? It's a loaded question. I've done a lot of reading on it.
But it's not a bad question. It's a perfectly fair question.
It's just very disturbing that the church wasn't more strident.
Yes.
In its opposition.
Okay. Dr. D'Ambrosio?
To the Axis
Well,
powers.
you have to you have to kind of understand, first of all, that Pius XII, after the war, was hailed as a hero by Jews and was hailed as a hero by a lot of people. And it really is kind of a black legend that came about later through a play in the 1960s that painted him as Hitler's Pope. So there was actually been a very slanderous kind of revisionist history to paint him as a collaborator or as a fan of Hitler, and not having done enough. Where on the other hand, the chief rabbi of Rome not only converted to Catholicism after the war, but he took the Pope's name. His baptismal name is Eugenio. That's how much he thought the Pope did for the Jewish community in World War II. Now, I just have to say that being vehement or taking a stand against Hitler publicly led to the imprisonment of a large number of the Catholic clergy. I don't know if you know this, but Dachau was the place for Catholic clergy to be sent, and over 1,000 priests died there. Many more thousand were there. It's kind of a fascinating story, honestly, the whole Dachau thing. But Hitler knew that his greatest opponent was his greatest adversary. The greatest trouble he's going to have is going to be from the Catholic Church. So the Pope had to walk a very fine line, because actually, when his predecessor, Pius XI, sent an encyclical, Mit brennender Sorge, which was anti-Nazi, and he had it read in German pulpits, those who read it were thrown into Dachau or worse. In Holland, when the Catholic community spoke out against the rounding up of Jews, the Nazis responded by rounding up Catholic Jews, including Edith Stein, the very next day, and making them the first ones to be shipped off to Auschwitz. So, speaking out against Hitler sounds great, but unfortunately, it actually can lead to just the wrong kind of results for Catholics and non-Catholics, Jews and Gentiles alike. So in order to preserve neutrality and preserve Vatican City, which was actually sheltering Jews and hiding U.S. prisoners, Allied prisoners, but of course it was not done by the Pope directly, but there were 4,000 people being hidden around Rome, stashed in houses and in convents. Assisi was full of Jews in convents. One of the fascinating things about World War II and Italy is the Nazis came into all the major cities in Italy and took over, and the Gestapo took over, and they started rounding up Jews. But Italians and the church leading the Italians doing this were able to save 70 to 80% of the Jews of Italy. 70 to 80% of the Jews everywhere else the Nazis occupied were killed. But 70, 80% were saved through an underground railroad that was operated largely by the Catholic Church. And so Pius couldn't overtly say he was doing this and couldn't overtly oppose Hitler, or the Vatican City would have been overrun, and Catholics would have been made worse examples of. It would have been counterproductive. So it had to be somewhat undercover in order to be successful and to minimize the loss, minimize the reprisals of Hitler against the church. So anyway, that's what I can tell you. I'm not an absolute expert on this, but I will just tell you that a Protestant historian has done a great job. And in writing a book, I don't know if you, let me see. I have the book right here, as a matter of fact. Let me see. Where is it?
We'll let you take a second to get it, because this is an important topic. So if you need a second to get it.
I'm looking around here. Hold on.
Yeah, sure. The question, just so that folks know, the question on the table is about why didn't Pius XII speak, not do more for the Jews, but speak more publicly? And Dr. D'Ambrosio is addressing that question.
Yeah, here's, in terms of just the truth about Pius XII, a historian named Rodney Stark, okay? He's in Baylor. I think he may have passed on, and I'm not sure if he's still alive, but he was a Protestant, a Lutheran historian. But he wrote a book. He was so sick of this nonsense about Pius XII not, being Hitler's Pope, that he debunked it in a book where he debunks other myths that are bad history about the Catholic Church. Now, he's not Catholic, but he's a historian. So the name of the book is Bearing False Witness, and you can get it on Amazon. Bearing False Witness by Rodney Stark. Phenomenal book. Hits the Crusades, hits Pius XII and the Nazis, hits a lot of topics that we deal with all the time when we talk to people about the Catholic Church, and these objections are brought up time and time again. The Spanish Inquisition. So anyway, it's a fascinating read, very well documented, and these questions are addressed, including your question.
Thanks, Ellis. I'm going to keep going and get as many on as I can. But I do. It's a pointed question, but not a bad question. These are good things to talk about. One of the things you do discover, though, is one of the things I get a kick out of the Second World War is the Italian general staff. They just ignored the Nazi orders to turn over the Jews. It wasn't until the Italians had lost to the Allied invasion that the Jews were turned over under Nazi command. But I love it that the Italian generals were just like, I'm not turning over Jews. And I know that it's a horrible story of fascism in Italy, but turning over the Jews was not an Italian a proclivity. That was not something that they got involved in.
Absolutely not. And they certainly weren't interested in cooperating a whole lot with Hitler, even when they were forced to be allies early on.
I feel
in the
like
war.
the Italian attitude was, why would we turn over the Jews? Like, leave us alone.
Why?
Why would we turn them over? Like, they just didn't do it. I know that in Croatia, in the Italian section in Croatia, the Jews tried to get to the Italians because the Italians just wouldn't do it. They were like, we're not interested in turning over Jews to the Nazis. Let's go to Jeff we just talked with Jeff. Let's go to Frank in San Antonio, Texas, listening on the Guadalupe Radio Network. Frank, thank you for your call. Go ahead with your question for Dr. D'Ambrosio.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of yours, Dr. Italy, and I think it's a simple question. Why has there never been a Peter II?
Yeah.
I'll give you a guess. I'll give you a guess because every pope is a Peter 1, 2, is a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 as successor of Peter, and to I think probably to take the name Peter II would be thought to be redundant and on the other hand very arrogant. So it's probably why it's been that way. But popes began taking different names. Didn't start at the very beginning. They began taking different names a bit, a few centuries after the papacy was actually instituted. So, yeah.
It's the look, Frank. Like it
doesn't look good.
No. It's like if you formed a rock band and you were like, let's call ourselves the Beatles too. Yeah. All right. Frank, thank you very much. Dr. Marcelino D'Ambrosio, our guest. How often do you go over to Italy with these pilgrimages? Is this like a once a year, twice a year?
The last 2 years in a row. We'll probably take a year off this year and do some other things, like we're going to Lourdes. We're going to Poland. After the movie is out, we're going to go and we're going to go to Auschwitz on Kolbe's feast day and have Mass there as part of our pilgrimage next summer. So people can find out more about that at dritaly.com. And then hopefully we'll get back to the Holy Land next October, November, which is number one. It should be number one on everyone's list, really.
Before I let you go, too, I wonder if you could, because I don't know if you know this, but I really like when people produce great materials on Jesus, and you produce some of the best materials on Jesus. And it was for Ascension Press. It was both video and printed material. But will you just talk just for a quick sec so people will know that they can still get that?
Yeah, Jesus, the way, the truth, and the life.
Amen.
And that's the name of the study series. And you can get the streaming videos, and you can get the book without necessarily being in a small group study. But it's designed as a small group study. So there's a workbook that's phenomenal that goes along with the paperback book and the videos. So you can do it on your own, do the whole thing, or you can do pieces of it. Just watch the videos or just read the book. But it's designed to be something you can do together. And I know families that have done it together. It's running right now in many parishes around the English-speaking world. It's been running, rather regularly since it came out in 2020. Yeah.
Yeah. What made me think of it was you said the Holy Land, because some of it is filmed over
It's
there.
filmed in the Holy Land. The whole thing is filmed there. Yeah, it's awesome.
Dr. Marcelino D'Ambrosio has been our guest. You think he's good? Wait till we get his son on next month. We're going to have Anthony on, and we're going to talk about a magnificent film, a real gift of a film that's coming out, Triumph of the Heart, about Maximilian Kolbe. And if you don't know Maximilian Kolbe's story, just look him up. It's quite an extraordinary story, the story of Maximilian Kolbe. And talking about those Catholic priests that were killed in the Holocaust. Certainly the Holocaust is a Jewish event that has a special Jewish character, but Catholic priests also and sisters gave their lives or had their lives taken there. Dr. D'Ambrosio, thank you so much. It's always wonderful spending time with you.
My pleasure, indeed. Let's do it more often, Si.
Right here on Catholic Answers Live.
Let's do it.